Okay, so picture this. It's Thanksgiving, the smell of turkey and thyme filling the air, and everything should be cozy, right? But no. My sister, Scarlet, suddenly decides she's taking over my spare rooms. Yep, just like that. And when I said no, well, let's just say wine flew across the table and my mom, Josephine, lost it too. I left, calm on the outside, but plotting on the inside. Trust me, what happened next, you do not want to miss it. The smell of thyme and roasted turkey should have been comforting, a familiar embrace. But that Thanksgiving, it felt suffocating. I had spent the last decade hosting in my home, a space I designed and built myself, a physical testament to years of relentless work, long nights, and endless dedication. I was Alina, 45, a successful architect, and for once, I wanted one perfect, peaceful day. But the truth, I was running on fumes. 70-hour work weeks had left me physically drained, emotionally exhausted, and still, I was determined to give my family something special. I wanted the warmth, the calm, the fleeting sense of normalcy. Yet, as soon as the doorbell rang, that idea evaporated like steam from the roast. My mother, Josephine, had already claimed her spot at the head of the table, surveying everything with that critical eye she always wore like armor. She looked immaculate, expectant, and somehow ready for a confrontation that I hadn't yet sensed. Scarlet and Lucas arrived an hour late, as if on cue, turning what should have been a calm entry into a theatrical storm. Scarlet, 39, breezed in like she owned the room, flawless, smiling, practically glowing, while Lucas, 41, hovered awkwardly behind her, an anxious shadow trying not to draw attention. The moment they stepped inside, the air thickened, tension snapping like a wire. Scarlet clapped her hands together sharply, that sound slicing through the room. So, we have the most amazing news. Well, sort of. It's a new beginning. My heart sank. Scarlet's new beginnings always meant one thing: she was about to ask for something I'd end up paying for, probably with no return. Lucas swallowed, eyes fixed nervously on his plate, and I braced myself. Scarlet leaned in, bright and breezy at first. Well, you see, our landlord, he's a real piece of work. Long story short, our lease is up. He's evicting us, Elena. And just like that, her playful charm evaporated. Sharp anger replaced it like a storm bursting behind a sunbeam. Just because we were a little behind and he had the nerve to complain about damages, it's a total scam. I kept my expression neutral, holding the platter of green beans steady, though a cold dread was creeping up my spine. Her grin widened, but it didn't reach her eyes. Well, that's the best part. We were thinking this house is just so huge, she gestured broadly, taking in the dining room, the open two-story great room, and my carefully curated home. I mean, you've got that entire wing upstairs, 3 extra rooms, right? You don't use them. My stomach twisted. What are you suggesting, Scarlet? I asked, keeping my voice calm, though my pulse was racing. We're moving in, she said as casually as if announcing a vacation. It's perfect. Lucas and I will take the 2 main guest rooms, and the third one can be my new office for vlogs. Just for a few months, maybe a year, until we get back on our feet. The room went silent, heavy, almost suffocating. Lucas stayed glued to his plate, nervous and quiet. My mother's eyes were on me, expectant, unreadable. I inhaled slowly. Scarlet, I'm sorry you're in this situation. I really am. But no. Her smile froze, then melted into disbelief. What? What do you mean, no? I placed my hands firmly on the edge of the table. I mean, no. You can't move in. This is my home, not a boarding house. I'll help you find a new apartment. Co-sign a lease if credit is the issue. But you are not taking my rooms. Her voice pitched higher, shrill, insistently. We don't need a co-signer. Elena, we need a place to live. You have all this space, and you're hoarding it for yourself. It's selfish. It's not selfish. Scarlet, it's my home. My office is here. I have clients. I need privacy. Privacy. You're always working. You won't even know we're here. Her words cut sharper than she realized, and I felt the familiar coil of tension tighten in my chest. Then her face twisted into something I recognized all too well. Pure, childish rage. She grabbed her glass of red wine. "We're taking them," she screamed. Lucas's voice was a whisper. "Scarlet, don't." But it was too late. The glass sailed across the room, wine exploding in a dark red splash across my face and chest. The silk of my cream blouse, a piece I had bought in Italy, was instantly soaked. The smell of Cabernet mingled with thyme and turkey, turning the dining room into something almost surreal, a sickly mix of elegance and chaos. I froze for a heartbeat, letting the shock wash over me, then reached for my napkin, calmly, deliberately dabbing at my face. My mother finally spoke, her voice cutting through the haze, cold and furious. "Elena, look at what you made your sister do. She's in need, and you slammed the door in her face after everything we've done for you." Her words hit harder than the wine. I paused mid-dab, the napkin halfway to my cheek. "What you've done for me, you are a cold, selfish woman." "Alina," she continued, rising from her chair, "she is your sister, your family. If you can do this to her, you're no child of mine." Those words landed with a deafening finality. "You're no child of mine." I looked at Scarlet, triumphant, breathing heavily. I looked at Lucas, shrinking into himself. I looked at my mother, her eyes full of pure, unfiltered hatred. I folded the napkin neatly, placed it on the table, and pushed my chair back. The scrape against the hardwood felt like the sound of a guillotine dropping. "You're right, Josephine," I said, quiet but firm. "I'm not." I turned and walked out of the dining room, the cold November air immediately hitting my skin. I grabbed my keys and got in my car, not daring to look back. The drive to my private studio was a blur. My blouse dried and stiffened against me, a sticky reminder of the chaos left behind. In the quiet darkness of the studio, I let the shock settle, replaced by a sharp, cold clarity. I didn't call a friend. I didn't call a therapist. I called David, my lawyer, calm and measured. "I need 2 documents tonight, an eviction notice, and a demand for repayment." The betrayal, the humiliation, the sheer audacity of it all. It had to be met with precision. My sanctuary, the private studio they didn't know existed, felt alive with control and order. Drafting tables, architectural models, blueprints, and the smell of coffee, the contrast to the chaos I just left was staggering. I rinsed my face in the small bathroom, cold water shocking my skin. The ruined blouse came off, replaced with a spare black turtleneck I kept for emergencies. Looking into the mirror, I saw someone unrecognizable, determined, icy. The fixer, the family's emotional shock absorber, was gone, swept away with the spilled wine. The phone buzzed. Scarlet, Lucas, Josephine, texts and calls, frantic, angry, pleading, meaningless. In the past, I would have spiraled, apologized, begged forgiveness. Not this time. Nothing stirred inside me. It was as if I were reading a weather report from a distant city. Then came the voicemail from Josephine, thick with tears and rage. "Elena, how dare you? How dare you walk out on your mother on Thanksgiving? Scarlet is beside herself. She is your flesh and blood. You have this palace to yourself and won't help your sister. You are a cold-hearted snake. Don't come crawling back to me when you're old and alone. You have no family. I saved the message. That's it. Every text, call, and plea was now irrelevant. They had assumed I would absorb everything, keep smoothing over, keep paying, keep forgiving. They had forgotten one thing: I am the architect. I build, I plan, I understand load-bearing walls. I know exactly where the foundation is solid and where it is weak. That Thanksgiving. They had tried to destroy me. They had tried to take what wasn't theirs. And now, for the first time, I wasn't just reacting. I was plotting, calculating. The tension of the dining room, the shock of the wine, Scarlet's greed, Josephine's fury, all of it would be answered, not with emotion, but with precision and strategy. The quiet of the studio, the clean lines of drafting tables and blueprints, the order around me, it was a stark, satisfying contrast to the chaos left behind. And in that stillness, I realized something important. They had no idea who they were dealing with. I walked out into the cold November air, and for the first time that evening, I felt the tension in my shoulders begin to shift. My steps were measured, almost deliberate, like each one was a decision I was making for myself, not for them. The chaos of the dining room, the wine splattered across my silk blouse, Scarlet's triumphant grin, Josephine's fury was fading behind me. I didn't look back. My car door clicked shut, and in the dark drive downtown, everything felt oddly calm. The city lights blurred past, my mind sorting through the evening's madness with a strange, detached precision. By the time I reached my private studio, the familiar quiet wrapped around me like a shield. This was my space, my sanctuary. And for once, it was untouched by their drama. The drafting tables, the blueprints, the architectural models, I took it all in, inhaled the clean scent of paper and coffee, and let it ground me. No one in my family knew this studio existed. To them, it was just the spare room in my house, the one Scarlet had so casually claimed. But here, I was in control. Here, I was safe. I stripped off the wine-stained turtleneck, letting the cold water of the small bathroom wash away the sticky remnants of the evening. And for a moment, I just stood there, staring at the mirror. My reflection didn't show fear or anger. It showed clarity. I saw the transformation happen within me, quiet, unstoppable. The Alina who absorbed, forgave, and tolerated, she was gone. In her place was something harder, sharper, unyielding. I picked up my phone. David, my lawyer, his number saved for years, flashed on the screen. I dialed, my voice calm, steady, almost eerily composed. "David," I said, "I need your help. It's urgent. I need 2 documents drafted tonight, an eviction notice and a demand for repayment." The words hung in the air, but I felt nothing. No guilt, no hesitation, just the clarity of necessity, the betrayal, the humiliation. All that chaos in my dining room, it had to be met with strategy, not emotion. David's voice, ever precise, cut through the line. "Eviction notice for whom?" "For my mother," I replied evenly. "And the demand letter is for Scarlet and Lucas. The amount is substantial. They've crossed every line you can imagine." I paused, letting him absorb that. He didn't flinch, didn't question. He knew me. He knew that when I acted with methodical precision. I hung up, placing the phone on the drafting table, and finally allowed myself to sit. Around me, the studio was orderly, quiet, calm. The contrast with the dining room couldn't have been more stark. There, chaos ruled, with accusations, thrown wine, and childish tantrums. Here, in this small, private sanctuary, everything was measured, deliberate. Every blueprint, every model, every document around me was a reminder of control, of purpose. I opened my laptop, pulled up the meticulously organized files I'd been compiling over years, bank statements, loan records, Receipts, I had everything documented, every small favor, every financial sacrifice I had made for my family. And for the first time, I looked at it not as a record of giving, but as evidence that I could use to protect myself, to assert boundaries that had been ignored for too long. I felt a strange thrill, not of vengeance, but of clarity. I was no longer the passive participant in their drama. I was the architect. Yes, but more than that, I was the strategist. I drafted my plan, step by step. The eviction notice would be precise, legal, indisputable. The demand letter would outline the full scope of loans, the misuse of funds, every wire transfer, every covered rent check, every business startup fund I had supported over the years. I allowed myself a deep, measured breath. I wasn't angry. I wasn't panicking. I was calculating. Each decision, each action was deliberate. I imagined their reactions, the shock, the disbelief, the scrambling for excuses, and I smiled faintly, not cruelly, but with the satisfaction of someone who finally understood the extent of the control she had always possessed, but never fully exercised. I looked around the studio again. This space, these walls, these clean lines and models, they weren't just architectural tools. They were a reminder of my discipline, my patience, my ability to see structures clearly and understand where the weak points were. And tonight, those weak points weren't in my work, they were in the foundation of my family's entitlement. For the first time, I truly felt it. I wasn't just defending myself, I was setting the boundaries I had ignored for too long, and I was calm, coldly precise, and ready. The world outside could scream, beg, and manipulate. In here, I had the clarity to respond on my terms. I had a plan. I had evidence. I had resolve. And most importantly, I had myself. The victim of Thanksgiving chaos was gone. In her place stood someone who would not be manipulated, someone who understood the weight of every decision, someone who knew that sometimes to preserve everything you've built, you have to remove what doesn't belong. I leaned back in the chair, letting that realization settle in. Outside, the city moved on, oblivious to the storm I'd left behind. Inside, I was in control, calm, and finally, resolute. I've always been the responsible one, the one who quietly carried the weight of everyone else's mistakes, the fixer, the planner. Growing up, I watched Scarlet glide through life effortlessly, her charm and bright smile opening doors while I balanced the bills and figured out which utilities we could skip just to keep the lights on. At 14, while she was at cheerleading practice or daydreaming about some big career that never panned out, I was at the kitchen table, pencil in hand, balancing our mother's checkbook, calculating interest, planning budgets. Josephine, my mother, had a flair for drama and a penchant for grand gestures, but discipline, not her strong suit. She craved the appearance of a perfect life, yet never had the patience or perhaps the desire to build one. She learned early that tears and theatrics could manipulate the world, and Scarlet had followed in her footsteps. Her own entitlement molded from a life where smiling and saying the right thing could excuse almost anything. And Lucas was a passenger in all of it, swept along by Scarlet's energy, never quite steering his own course. He was pleasant, sure, but weak-willed, easily dazzled, and fully content to drift in the wake of his wife's ambitions and chaos. My father, on the other hand, was quiet, methodical, and practical. An engineer, overshadowed by Josephine's drama, he had always admired structure, precision, and stability. On his deathbed, his hand in mine, he whispered something that stayed with me all my life. Don't let them drain you. Your heart is a house. Don't let them take it over. Keep a room for yourself. I thought he meant emotionally, that I should reserve a part of myself, that they couldn't control, couldn't exploit. And in some ways, that's true. But I also realized that his words were literal, practical advice. Protect the foundations you've built, the spaces that are yours alone. After he passed, I inherited a small life insurance policy that was meant for the family's future, though it could only be accessed by me, placed in a trust. My mother was furious, but I understood. It wasn't about favoritism, it was about responsibility, about making sure the foundations of our family, of our lives, were secure. I used that money wisely. I paid off Josephine's debts, funded my graduate studies, and bought a modest duplex, living in one half and renting the other. That was my first true foundation, my own small piece of the world that I built with my own hands. Meanwhile, Scarlet drifted through life, taking the path of least resistance. She dropped out of the community college I had paid for, chasing dreams of acting, then design, then eventually a lifestyle blogging career that in practice mostly involved credit card debt and expensive brunches for a handful of followers. She never built, she consumed. Lucas enabled her, content to be swept along by her whims. My financial support became an expectation, a given. When Scarlet needed a new laptop for her blog, I bought it. When Lucas's car was repossessed, I fronted a used one. And then, 10 years ago, my biggest sacrifice yet, Josephine. She was living in a miserable apartment, complaining constantly, fearful and demanding. I'm your mother, Alina. I deserve to feel safe. She pleaded, tears in her eyes. I bought her a condo on Water Street, a beautiful 2-bedroom with a dormer and a river view. I put her name on the lease. But the title, the deed, the mortgage, it was all mine. Every bill, every HOA fee, every cable charge, I covered it all. It was supposed to be a foundation, a structure she could rely on, something my father would have approved of. But to them, it was never a gift. It was a right, a due. My success, my work, my careful planning, all of it was treated as a communal resource, a never-ending well to draw from. And so, I started noticing patterns. Scarlet's compliments and sweet requests had strings attached. Lucas's nods and quiet acquiescence reinforced her entitlement. Josephine's dramatics encouraged them both. A steady stream of manipulation disguised as love. I realized I had to be meticulous, careful, not just with my money, but with my history, my documentation, my record of who owed what and why. I began saving receipts, keeping meticulous records of every loan, every gift, every covered expense. For 15 years, I documented every wire transfer, every loan for a car repair, every rent check, every business fund I provided. At first, it was for my own clarity, for budgeting and tracking, but over time, I recognized its greater purpose. I was quietly building a case. Not vindictive, not in the moment, but something solid, indisputable, that could protect me if the time ever came. And that time, I realized, was approaching. They had always assumed I would absorb everything, that my generosity was infinite and my patience unbreakable. They forgot, or perhaps never realized, that I understood structure, I understood foundations, I knew which walls were load-bearing, which could collapse, and how to reinforce them. Scarlet had always taken, always assumed, always demanded. Lucas followed, passive, compliant, weak. Josephine manipulated, encouraged, guilt-tripped. But I, the architect, the reliable Alina, had been quietly documenting every step, preparing without them knowing, waiting until the moment required precision rather than emotion. It was strangely comforting. Reflecting on all of it in the quiet of my studio, I could see the patterns so clearly, the consequences of their choices laid bare in my records, Scarlet's lifestyle, her borrowing, her demands, everything was tracked. Lucas's complicity, his lack of agency, equally documented. Josephine's indulgence, her theatrics, her constant assertions of moral high ground, all noted. And for the first time, it wasn't resentment that settled in my chest. It was clarity. I wasn't angry. I wasn't bitter. I was aware. I had built a structure strong enough to withstand them, and now, when the moment came, I would act with precision. I could confront them not from emotion, not from rage, but from facts, evidence, and the unshakable foundation I had maintained for years. That foundation wasn't just financial, it was personal, emotional, strategic. And as I stared at the files, at the spreadsheets, at the meticulously organized record of their entitlement, I realized something important. I had power they couldn't touch, control they couldn't manipulate, and clarity they could never comprehend. I had built my life, my career, my assets, my freedom, and I had safeguarded it. And while they believed they were entitled, that they could demand, manipulate, and guilt me into submission, they had forgotten who I was beneath the veneer of patience and generosity. I wasn't just the reliable one, the steady one, the one who fixed everything. I was the one who understood how everything worked, who could calculate risk, consequences, and outcomes with precision. And now, the time would come when all that quiet preparation would be revealed. My sacrifices, my documentation, my meticulous planning, they weren't just acts of love or duty. They were a record, a foundation I could rely on. They would see, in detail, exactly what had been given, what had been expected, and how recklessly they had mismanaged it all. I thought about Scarlet, still so certain that charm and tears could manipulate reality, and Lucas, the passive enabler, and Josephine, who had raised a household of entitlement and relied on my generosity for decades. They had built their world on my acquiescence, my compliance, and my patience. And now, I would remind them of the one thing they had ignored. I was the architect of the foundations. I knew how every wall, every beam, every line of support worked, and I would act not in anger, but in precision, revealing the truth they had never wanted to see. My family had assumed generosity was weakness, patience was gullibility, and kindness was infinite. They were about to learn, painfully, that structure and planning, combined with patience and precision, created boundaries even they could not cross. After I left my family's Thanksgiving disaster behind, I spent the night in my studio, the city quiet outside, the world moving along as if nothing had happened. I sat at my drafting table, surrounded by the models and blueprints that had been my companions for years, and I let my mind go over every detail of the evening. Scarlet's demand, her smugness, the way she and Lucas had plotted to take over my home. It wasn't just entitlement. Something about it didn't sit right. It was reckless, yes, but there was more beneath the surface, something they weren't saying out loud. I needed to know the full story, to understand why they were so desperate, why they thought this was acceptable behavior. A little behind on rent rarely leads to immediate eviction, even with a difficult landlord. So I made a decision. I would find out, in absolute detail, what they were hiding. The next morning, I called a private investigator, discreet, professional, someone recommended by David, my lawyer. I explained the situation simply, calmly. I want to know why my sister was evicted. And while you're at it, run a thorough background check on her husband, Lucas. There was no hesitation in my voice. I wasn't asking for opinions or speculating. I wanted facts. Over the next 2 days, the report came back, and the picture that emerged was worse than I had imagined. Scarlet and Lucas hadn't just been behind on rent, they hadn't paid for 6 months. Their landlord had tried to work with them repeatedly, offering extensions, warnings, negotiating payments, but they had been dodging every attempt. That wasn't the worst part. The damages. They hadn't just worn the apartment down with normal use. They'd attempted to renovate it themselves, trying to make it more Instagrammable, and in the process had knocked down a non-load-bearing wall without permission. The estimated repair costs, over $20,000, and Lucas, who had seemed so passive, so harmless, wasn't just a bystander. He was a gambler, quietly draining money from multiple sources, accumulating high-interest debt in his own name separate from Scarlet. The money I had given her for rent, for business, for repairs, it had been fed into a digital black hole, gone. Untraceable except by careful documentation. It hit me like a physical weight. My generosity, my patience, my decades of support, it had been exploited, mismanaged, and worse, deliberately. But here's the thing. I wasn't shocked in a chaotic, emotional way. I was calm, coldly calm, because now I held every card. I had the eviction notice, the demand letter for repayment, and now, thanks to the PI, proof of their utter irresponsibility. I could see exactly how their lives had been mismanaged, where the dominoes had fallen, and how carefully I could make them all topple. And I wasn't going to act impulsively. I would act strategically. The first time they tried to overwhelm me with their chaos, they failed. The next time, they would see the consequences of their choices laid out clearly, indisputably. I leaned back in my chair, letting the weight of the report settle around me. The spreadsheets, the bank statements, the PI report, it was all there. A detailed map of Scarlet and Lucas's financial recklessness. And the most satisfying part, they had assumed I was powerless, that I would absorb it all, that my patience and kindness were weaknesses. They had forgotten one crucial fact. I am the architect. I understand structure, balance, and weight. I know how to reinforce a system, how to identify vulnerabilities, and most importantly, I know exactly where the support beams are. Scarlet and Lucas had built their entire life on a shaky foundation, assuming I would always be there to hold it up. But now, that support was gone. I didn't feel anger or vengeance. I felt clarity, control, the intoxicating precision of understanding everything and knowing exactly what to do with it. Their evasion of rent, the damages to the apartment, Lucas's gambling, all of it painted a picture of irresponsibility and recklessness that couldn't be argued with, couldn't be manipulated, couldn't be smoothed over with charm or tears. I considered the coming confrontation, the moment when I would present the evidence. The anticipation wasn't cruel, it was methodical, like setting a perfect blueprint and waiting for the structure to reveal its strength or weakness. I imagined Scarlet, confident and smug, thinking she could demand and intimidate. Lucas standing passive beside her, and Josephine, always manipulative, expecting me to acquiesce. And I smiled faintly, because for once, I wouldn't absorb. I wouldn't forgive out of guilt or obligation. I had planned, documented, and now I had the power to act on my terms. The PI report had done more than just uncover their mismanagement. It gave me context. I understood the choices, the risks, the reckless behavior, and the consequences. I understood exactly how deep their problem went, how they had used my resources, and how fragile their entire structure really was. And this wasn't just about money, it wasn't just about boundaries or fairness, it was about clarity, about ensuring that the pattern of exploitation ended, about making sure that what I had built, my life, my home, my sense of self, was no longer at risk from their manipulation. I spent hours going over the report, tracing the flows of money, connecting dots, confirming facts. I reviewed every bank transfer I had ever made, every loan, every gift. Each piece was documented, logged, and cross-referenced with precision. And with each confirmation, my resolve hardened. This wasn't a battle of emotion, it was a battle of facts. The emotional chaos of Thanksgiving, the wine, the yelling, the accusations, it was all background noise to the clarity that now filled my mind. I had turned the tables without ever raising my voice. I had shifted from victim to strategist, calmly, methodically, and with unwavering purpose. I could anticipate every argument, every excuse, every manipulation they might attempt, and I knew I would be ready. For the first time, I felt truly untouchable. My generosity had always been my armor, my patience a shield. But now, that armor and shield were sharpened into precision tools, and I held them in my hands, ready to act. I imagined their faces when they realized that nothing, not charm, not tears, not threats, could undo the structure I had built around myself. They had gambled on my compliance, and they had lost. I reviewed the PI's findings one more time. Scarlet had dodged rent for half a year, accumulating debt and leaving the apartment in shambles. Lucas had poured money into gambling, taking out high-interest loans, some even in Scarlet's name without her knowledge, compounding the damage, and all of it had been hidden under a veil of excuses and distractions. But now, the veil was gone. The information was in my hands, clear, factual, undeniable. And I was calm. I understood the full scope, and I knew exactly when and how to strike. Not in anger, not in spite, but with precision, the way an architect reinforces a failing structure, exactly where it needs it most. The power dynamic had shifted completely. They believed they were confronting me. In reality, I had been silently observing, documenting, calculating for years. And finally, the time had come for the confrontation that I had prepared for meticulously. I wasn't just ready to respond, I was ready to demonstrate, to expose, to reveal the reality of their recklessness. Every decision, every delayed payment, every misused dollar, every gamble Lucas had taken, all of it pointed to a pattern of behavior that could no longer be ignored or excused. I had evidence, timing, and strategy. They had nothing but assumptions, entitlement, and outdated expectations of my patients. And that realization, that absolute clarity of control, was intoxicating. For the first time, I felt that I could move through the chaos they had created without being pulled into it. I could observe, direct, and execute with precision. The chaos outside the studio, the shouting, the accusations, the wine-stained drama, they no longer had any power over me. Because I understood the structure, I knew the foundation, and I held every piece of evidence they thought they could never see. And so, as I sat at my drafting table, surrounded by models and reports, a quiet, calm satisfaction filled me. The Thanksgiving chaos had set the stage, but the play was mine to direct. And I knew, beyond any doubt, that when the time came, the consequences for Scarlet, Lucas, and even Josephine would be precise, undeniable, and irrevocable. The architect was no longer a bystander. The strategist was ready to act. The next morning, I knew they were coming. I had spent all of Saturday preparing, meticulously organizing of resources, every spreadsheet, every piece of evidence that laid bare Scarlet and Lucas's financial recklessness and my mother's complicity. By the time the doorbell rang, I was ready, not tense, not frantic, but calm, calculated, every movement deliberate. I checked the security camera before approaching the door. Scarlet, Josephine, and Lucas huddled on my doorstep, faces tight with fury and fear. They looked like a storm about to break, and I felt an odd thrill knowing I would be the calm eye of it. I took a deep breath, smoothing my jacket, and opened the door. Scarlet lunged forward before I could even speak, trying to push past me into the foyer. "You can't ignore us, Alina. You have to fix this," she spat, voice raw with desperation. I placed a firm hand on her shoulder, holding her in place. "You're not welcome in my house. Scarlet, we can talk on the porch." Her eyes widened, disbelief flashing across her face. Josephine immediately started shrieking, wrapping her thin coat around herself. "It's freezing. You'd make your own mother stand in the cold." I glanced at her, voice flat and measured. "You're the one who downed me. You're lucky I opened the door at all. You have 5 minutes. You have to stop this." Scarlet's voice broke, pleading, almost panicked. "This eviction, you'll kill Mom. Her heart can't take it." I shook my head, calm, controlled. "My heart is fine. And yes, this is a boundary. Not abuse, not cruelty, a boundary." Josephine's glare snapped toward me, fury replacing concern. "This is abuse. Elena, elder abuse. I'll go to the papers. I'll tell everyone what you're doing." I crossed my arms, voice steady. "And what exactly am I doing? I'm refusing to let you live rent-free in a $700,000 condo that I own and pay for. I am refusing to fund your reckless lifestyle. That is a boundary, not abuse." "Lucas, you stood by silently. Where was your apology Thursday when she demanded my property?" Lucas's eyes widened, voice barely audible. We're sorry." I fixed my gaze on him. "Is it too much to be held accountable?" Scarlet's lips curled with outrage. "For being in a little debt. For having bad luck? You've always been lucky. Elena, you've always had everything. You don't know what it's like to struggle." The air went still, thick with tension, the quiet before the storm of truth. I was about to unleash. I let a sharp, bitter laugh escape me, startling them all. "Struggle," I said, my voice low, dangerously calm. "You who I've been funding since you were 19. You who has never held a job for more than 6 months. You don't know the meaning of the word." I stepped back, pointing directly at Scarlet. "You want to talk about accountability? Let's talk about the real reason you were evicted. It wasn't bad luck. It was 6 months of unpaid rent." Scarlet's face drained of color, Lucas paled, his eyes wide with panic. "And the damages?" I continued, relentless. "The wall you knocked down in your rental apartment, the $20,000 in repairs your landlord has to cover now." Her voice cracked. How did you know that?" I shrugged lightly, calm as ever. "It doesn't matter how I know. I know. And I know you were hiding it. You came to my Thanksgiving planning to dump your self-inflicted disaster in my lap and call it a new beginning. You didn't just ask for help. You demanded my home, and then you assaulted me when I said no. I turned my full attention to Lucas, and you. Lucas, you stood there. You let it happen. Where was that apology?" He opened his mouth, but no sound came out, just the shaking of his hands and the terror in his eyes. I locked eyes with Josephine, voice steady and clear. "They're not just a little behind. They're in a deep, dark financial hole they dug themselves. And you've been enabling it." Scarlet's scream cut through the cold air, sharp and desperate. "You spied on me. You dug up dirt. You're trying to ruin me. You're jealous. You've always been jealous." Her words were frantic, but her venom had no effect on me. Josephine just stared, ashen, the first real uncertainty on her face since the confrontation began. I stepped closer, calm, commanding. "Get off my property. This isn't a request. You're trespassing. You cannot do this to us. You have 30 days to resolve your situation, just as you had 6 months to pay your rent." I pulled the eviction notice from my briefcase, sliding it across the floor toward them, and the demand letter next, precise and documented. Scarlet shrieked, voice high and trembling. You witch. What did you do? This is blackmail. I'll have you arrested. This is harassment." I knelt slightly, meeting her gaze. "No, this is accountability. Here is the $84,000 demand, documented and supported by receipts, bank transfers, and evidence of loans I have extended over the years. You have 30 days to propose a repayment plan, or I will file in small claims court. Lucas visibly trembled. His pale face and shaking hands betrayed the fear he had been hiding all along. Josephine gasped. Words caught in her throat. Scarlet's smugness evaporated, replaced by shock and dawning horror. I continued, calm, almost clinical. You came into my home, insulted me, demanded my property, assaulted me, and backed each other up. You assumed I was your safety net. That net is gone. Scarlet's shriek turned to sobbing, frantically looking to her mother. Mom is homeless. Where is she supposed to go? I gestured slightly, still composed. I imagine she will move in with you and Lucas. Wherever you end up, you have 30 days to figure it out. Goodbye. The sound of the door closing behind me echoed in the foyer. I leaned against the door, heart racing, not with fear, but with adrenaline and clarity. The shift from passive victim to active strategist was complete. Every decision, every action was deliberate and controlled. Josephine's face reflected shock and disbelief. Scarlet, still sputtering, could only stare at the floor, her fury dampened by the evidence I had laid bare. Lucas sat frozen, paralyzed with the knowledge that he could no longer hide behind his wife's theatrics. I held the space, unshaken, authoritative, letting the weight of truth and preparation speak louder than words could. I knew exactly what I was doing. I wasn't cruel. I wasn't vengeful. I was precise, measured, unyielding. I had given them every opportunity to understand boundaries, to recognize responsibility, to act like adults. They had chosen chaos, entitlement, and manipulation instead. And now, they face the consequences not in anger, but in clarity, in law, in unassailable truth. The confrontation had begun, and for the first time, the balance of power was unmistakably mine. Sunday arrived, and with it, the public showdown my family had been orchestrating behind the scenes. Aunt Linda had called the meeting, claiming she wanted to resolve the chaos. But I knew the truth. They were expecting me to be ambushed, to be surrounded by relatives, ready to judge and shame me into submission. I prepared meticulously the night before. 5 binders, each one filled with every scrap of evidence, meticulously organized bank statements, loan records, receipts, the PI report detailing Scarlet and Lucas's reckless spending, photographs of the damaged rental, and the eviction notice. Every detail laid bare, every hidden action documented. When I walked into Aunt Linda's living room, the atmosphere was thick, heavy enough to choke on. Aunt Linda and Uncle Mike were seated, faces grim, clearly bracing themselves. On the sofa, my mother, Scarlet, and Lucas waited. Scarlet looked smug, confident she had won. Josephine adopted her usual tragic victim pose, and Lucas, he looked terrified, eyes darting, small and uncertain. I placed my briefcase on the table, heart steady, every movement deliberate. Alina, thank you for coming, Aunt Linda began, her voice firm, gesturing to the hardback chair across from the sofa. Now this has to stop. Your mother is sick with worry. You're evicting her. I nodded. Calm, precise. I am, and you, I said, glancing at Scarlet and Lucas. I am demanding repayment for documented loans. The room went tense. Scarlet's smirk faltered slightly. Josephine's eyes flicked to me, searching, wary. Yes, this is not how we treat family, Aunt Linda said, voice rising. You're right, I said quietly, folding my hands. It's not. I opened my briefcase and pulled out the binders, placing one in front of Aunt Linda, one in front of Uncle Mike, and sliding the others across to Josephine, Scarlet, and Lucas. What is this? Scarlet sneered, hand trembling slightly. That, I said, keeping my tone even, is the truth. The file I've prepared for my lawyer, But since you wanted a family meeting, I brought copies. Open them. Read. Their fingers fumbled as they flipped the pages. The air tense. Almost electric. The first page, the deed to the condo, made their faces blanch. Alina, is this the deed? It's only in your name, Aunt Linda whispered, incredulous. It always has been, I replied. For 10 years, I've paid every cent. I gestured to the next page. They saw the itemized list of loans, the bank transfers, the credit card payoffs, $84,000 and some change, every dollar accounted for. Scarlet gasped, a mix of denial and disbelief. Uncle Mike whispered, horrified. Turn the page. I said, they did. Photographs of the destroyed rental greeted them, gaping holes, ruined cabinetry, a visual testament to carelessness and entitlement. My God, Aunt Linda murmured. Scarlet, what did you do? Scarlet's voice shrieked, panicked. She's lying. Those are fakes. She's trying to frame me. I looked her straight in the eye, calm, unwavering. Am I asked softly. And then came Tabby. Oh, Lucas went pale, the color draining from his face, his hands trembling in his lap, the report of his online gambling, payday loans, and the forged 401k withdrawal glared back at him. Scarlet, mid-scream, froze and slowly turned to him, realization dawning. What 401k, she whispered. He couldn't speak. His whole body shook as he finally, painfully, broke. His hands fell to his face, sobs raw and unrestrained. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I was going to win it back. I was going to pay it all back. The room was silent, only the sound of Lucas's helpless sobs filling the space. Scarlet stared at him, horror etched into her features, her narrative collapsing in real time. Josephine's face mirrored the shock, eyes wide, as if struck by lightning. Aunt Linda and Uncle Mike looked at me with a new understanding, respect replacing judgment. The image of Scarlet as innocent, unlucky, and me as cruel and greedy shattered. The truth, every hidden detail, lay out in the open, undeniable. I turned my attention back to Scarlet. You gambled it, every penny, every dollar, every loan, I extended all of it. You built your own collapse, and you let him steer the ship into ruin. Scarlet's mouth opened, closed, opened again, words failing her. Josephine could only stare, her narrative dismantled, her usual theatrics useless in the face of documented evidence. Aunt Linda spoke first, her tone low, sharp, precise. Scarlet, Lucas, you are con artists. You've lied to this family, bled Alina dry, and done so with her patience as your safety net. She gestured to Lucas. And you, Josephine, you enabled it. You sat there on Thanksgiving, screamed at her, disowned her, and allowed this to continue. Josephine stammered, hands wringing. I didn't know it was this bad, she whispered. Uncle Mike, voice booming, cut in. It's always easier to blame Elena. She works, she saves. She's reliable so naturally. She's the scapegoat for everyone's failures. I nodded, letting the room absorb it. Scarlet's horror deepened. Her eyes, once confident and fierce, darted between Lucas, who continued to and the binders, the evidence, the irrefutable truth she could no longer deny. For the first time, she saw the full weight of her actions, the reckless choices she had made, and the consequences she had ignored for so long. Josephine's lips parted, disbelief still painted across her features. She had always believed she could manipulate outcomes, control narratives, and bend reality with drama and tears. That illusion was gone. Lucas remained collapsed in his chair, silent, shaking, the sobs racking his body. Scarlet finally turned to me, the fight gone from her eyes. This eviction. Is it real? She asked, voice barely audible. I nodded. 30 days. Scarlet. That's what the law requires. And the $84,000, that's the leverage. I'm not forcing you into bankruptcy, but I'm no longer your bank. You and Lucas are on your own. She blinked, staring at me, then at her mother, realization dawning, horror spreading across her features. Mom, you have to choose. Josephine looked confused, her habitual cowardice surfacing, her eyes wide, pleading. Scarlet's voice cracked. Are you coming with me and him, or are you going to stay here and beg your no-child to take you back? It was the ultimate test, the culmination of decades of mismanagement, entitlement, and manipulation. And Josephine, she chose, predictably, to abandon me again, her fear and habit of taking the easiest path guiding her. She turned to me, eyes wide, desperate. Elena, baby, you can't let me go. I'm old. I have nowhere to go. Scarlet, defeated, let out a sound that was half laugh, half sob. Of course, she said, and with that, both of them left, carrying their own chaos away. Lucas scrambled after her, binder in hand, panicked. The room was left in stunned silence. I stood there, calm, letting the weight of truth settle. Aunt Linda and Uncle Mike absorbed the impact, their expressions full of respect and understanding. Josephine, broken and silent, had no words. And I had presented the irrefutable evidence. The narrative of poor, unlucky Scarlet, the cruel and greedy Elena, had been shattered. The truth, the documented, undeniable truth was out, and I had done it with precision, control, and unwavering calm. After the family meeting, the aftermath was quiet but profound. Scarlet and Lucas disappeared for a few days, their frantic energy replaced by absence. I later learned from Aunt Linda that Scarlet and Lucas had a massive argument at the condo. Scarlet finally leaving him, moving in with a friend from her blogging days, effectively vanishing from the family. Lucas, left with nothing but the gambling debts and my demand letter, returned to his parents, broken and humbled. I had my lawyer formally drop the demand against Scarlet, but kept it active against Lucas. I didn't expect to see a dime, but the leverage would hang over him for years, a permanent reminder of accountability. My mother, Josephine, was a different story. After a week of tearful, manipulative calls, which I didn't answer, she finally accepted her fate. She refused my offer of the motel, claiming it was beneath her. Instead, she moved in with Aunt Linda, turning my aunt's guest room into a shrine of her own victimhood. Aunt Linda, to her credit, tolerated it with patience, her eyes now fully open to my mother's true nature. The 30th of the month arrived. As promised, the locks on the Water Street condo were changed at noon. I hired a company to professionally pack Josephine's belongings and move them to a high-end, climate-controlled storage unit, paying for the first 6 months. After that, it was up to her. The condo was empty, pristine, and I immediately put it on the market. It sold in less than a week in a cash offer bidding war. And my house, the beautiful, custom-built home that held memories of that awful Thanksgiving I sold it to at an astronomical price to a tech executive. With the proceeds from both sales, I severed the last physical ties to my old life and finally did what I had dreamed of for years. I bought a sprawling, open-concept industrial loft in the city's old warehouse district. Brick walls, exposed steel beams, massive 20-foot windows completely mine. I spent the next month designing the interior, a perfect blend of minimalism and comfort. For the first time in years, the space was exactly as I wanted it. My reconciliation wasn't with my family, it was with myself. I reconnected with old friends, People who knew me beyond the roles I had been forced to play: the fixer, the responsible one, the financial crutch. I even took a 2-week vacation to Japan to study temple architecture, immersing myself in structure, balance, and design purely for the love of it. Work was no longer an escape, it was a passion. The first holiday, Christmas, approached, and I braced myself for the familiar ache of family guilt, but it never came. On Christmas Eve, I was in my new loft. The city lights glittered outside. Classical music played softly in the background. A fire crackled in the modern fireplace. And I sketched a new design for a public library, lost in lines and space, in peace. My phone, which had become a source of constant anxiety, buzzed quietly. It was Aunt Linda. "Merry Christmas. Elena, your mother is being herself. But Mike and I are thinking of you. We're proud of you." I smiled, a real, calm smile, and texted back, "Merry Christmas, Aunt Linda. Thank you. That means the world to me." I poured myself a glass of very good, very expensive wine, not Cabernet, something new, and stood at the window, looking out at the world I had built for myself. Alone, but not lonely. Free, in every sense that mattered. I was not a daughter, not a sister, not a fixer. I was just Alina, at last fully in control of my own life, my own choices, and my own peace. I could let go of the weight I had carried for 25 years. The burden of enabling, forgiving, and absorbing. It was gone, and the relief was absolute. The boundaries I had finally enforced were not walls to isolate, but shields to protect the life I had earned, the structure I had built with patience, strategy, and care, sitting there, glass in hand, looking at the city and the loft I now called home. I felt it: the quiet, the satisfaction, the freedom. And for the first time in decades, I let myself breathe deeply, without the weight of obligation pressing down. I could enjoy this life without fear, without guilt, without the constant pull of manipulation or expectation. And as the night settled, I realized that the joy wasn't just in the space, the architecture, the designs, or even the freedom from my family's chaos. It was in the certainty that I had acted wisely, that I had maintained my integrity, that I had finally set boundaries that could not be breached. The lessons weren't learned through confrontation alone, but through careful observation, patience, and the quiet accumulation of facts and understanding over years. And now, at last, I was free. If you've enjoyed following this story and you want to see more moments of real-life drama, strategy, and personal growth, hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. Because life is full of surprises. And sometimes, setting boundaries and taking control is the ultimate gift you can give yourself. Alina finally stepped into a life fully her own, free from the chaos and expectations that had defined her for years, in her new loft, with space to breathe and create. She savored the quiet satisfaction of boundaries set and lessons learned. It's a story of reclaiming control, finding peace, and knowing when to let go. If this journey captured your attention, give it a like and subscribe. You never know what real-life twists and clever strategies might unfold next.